You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by Referral Mortgages and Blue Panda Realty, with your hosts, Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate in our nation's capital.
Good morning, Ottawa, world. It's Friday. It's going to be released Tuesday. It's the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast. Greg, David, how's it going?
Amazing.
Good. It's currently Friday. Yeah, wild week. It's been a wild week in real estate. We have a lot to talk about. I'm just going to make sure that we got everything popping on our platforms here. Make sure we've all shared it on Facebook. Make sure that people know. I actually wanted to kick this off with a story, if you guys are interested. I know there's been a lot of change happening, obviously, over the last few months, over the last year for sure. But in real estate, we see a lot of different perspectives. And I heard a short parable yesterday that I felt was very relevant to some things that we've encountered as a group recently. It's basically the parable of the blind man and the elephant. Have you guys heard this before?
No.
Not at all. No. Dave's like, no. So long story short, it's basically the story of a group of 4 blind men that roll up on an elephant that they've never encountered an elephant before. And the story is basically that each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part. So, the tusk, the trunk, etc. And then they have to describe the elephant based on their limited experience. And the description of the elephant are obviously different from each other. So in some versions of this parable, they come to suspect that the other person is dishonest because they have a different perspective. But the long story short, the moral of the parable is that, humans have a tendency to claim absolute truth based on their limited subjective experience, and they ignore everyone else's limited subjective experiences, which are equally true. So I just found it, very relevant to everything going on right now, and just for people to be kind. Everyone's got a different set of experiences, different perspective, and it's important to keep that in mind in all aspects of life.
And that's the show.
I love that.
Thanks for coming out.
That's it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
So you have it. So
Paul's parables.
Paul's parables. So the stress test.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Lots of headlines, lots of talk. I've been getting a lot of emails and a lot of people reaching out just asking about what's going on with the stress test. How's this going to affect the market? Dave, you want to give all of our listeners maybe just a Cole's notes as to exactly what a stress test is? Because people probably, if they haven't bought or sold recently, they probably don't even know what that term means. So maybe just summarize, what is a stress test and what changes are afoot?
Yeah, for sure. So back in 2018, the federal government and through the finance minister made a change in how mortgages are factored from a debt to income ratio. They instituted, it used to be prior to 2018, if your 5-year fixed rate was 3%, you were qualified based on that 3% mortgage payment. Come 2018, the finance minister instituted a new change called a stress test, meaning that they were going to qualify you at either the 5-year fixed rate plus 2% or the Bank of Canada qualifying rate, which is an average of all the top 6 banks' 5-year fixed posted rate. Now, the posted rate is the one that you would see on their website that is in the 5s or the high 4s, things like that. And what they calculate their penalties on. This is not their real rates. This is their arbitrary rates so that they can calculate higher penalties when somebody's breaking their mortgage. And that's what is being used for this average rate. So in 2018, they instituted a stress test. So instead of being factored for that mortgage at what your true rate is, they were either doing 2% higher or this Bank of Canada average rate or posted rate is what it's called. So in comparison, right now, you can get if you're buying an insured mortgage or insured property, meaning putting less than 20% down, you can get a variable rate at 1.45%. Right now, you're having to qualify for that mortgage at 4.79%. So the payments of what the bank is calculating that you have to qualify for your income is based on a 4.79% rate, even though you're actually only paying, 1.5%. The same on a 5-year fix. Right now, they're around 2.09 to, for conventional upwards of 2.44, depending on bank. You're still having to qualify at 4.79. Their logic is that if rates increase dramatically, they want to ensure that people can afford that payment, which is absolutely ludicrous as a rationale, because rates don't increase in that period of time. And also over that period of time between when your 5-year mortgage term is up, you've paid down substantially that mortgage and significant portion of that principal, where on renewal, even if rates had gone up, you could re-amortize and lengthen that out to shorten your payments. So yesterday, because of everything we've talked about this past year and the past few years in Ottawa and across the country, of it being the markets being so hot, and primarily in Vancouver and Toronto is where they're stymieing it, and now Ottawa a little bit, but they are, as of yesterday, they're trying to figure out ways of cooling the market as opposed to just changing supply regulations to increase building and supply in that sense, which is the main primary issue. They are instituting a higher stress test. So instead, right now the rate's being at 4.79, which prior to COVID was actually at 504, dropped to 494, and then now 479. But they are instituting for any uninsured, so somebody putting 20% down or more, so you've saved considerably to put a large down payment on a home. You're putting $100,000 on a $500,000 home. You're going to have to qualify at 5.25% it's either 2%, your fixed 5-year fixed rate plus 2%, or 5.25%. Again, the rationale they're trying to say is that so you can afford that payment. They're just trying to, slow the market down. It means a change or a decrease in what people could qualify for as of June 1st by 4%. But that's penalizing people. In my view is that it's penalizing people that have done a good job of saving. They're putting a huge portion of down payment down. Huge equity. There's no, limited risk to the bank. You would need the market to absolutely collapse in order for there to be any sort of risk there. And these people are qualifying not only at that 5.25, but on their debts that they have. Something they don't address is that credit card payments are still at 20%. And for, the Bay and these other ones are at 30%, 29.99. Those haven't been addressed, even though borrowing power has gone down. And for qualifying for a mortgage, people don't realize that the banks already qualify you and count your debt as if you have a credit card payment, a line of credit payment, they're using 3% of that outstanding balance as if that's your monthly payment. So not only are they qualifying you at upwards of even a 3.5x your payment, they're also increasing your unsecured debt payments dramatically by 3% of the outstanding balance, which is a huge amount. 3% on a $30,000 line of credit balance is $1,500 a month payment. Is what they're using to qualify.
Whereas typically it's interest only, right? If you have a secured line of credit, or even on a regular line of credit, it's usually maybe 1% of the balance or something along those lines. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, as you said, Dave, because they're not accurate, and it's funny to see, as you mentioned about the visas and so on. Borrowing has never been cheaper, and people have never, a lot of people are in a difficult situation with COVID and so on, but credit cards are still at 20%. Like retail cards are still at 30%. Like how does that happen? How have those not been lowered?
If there was
but mortgage rates are at 1.5%.
Yeah, if there was a true concern by the government of people's affordability or household debt, they would be addressing the unsecured rates that credit card companies and these institutions are charging, which are legally allowed to charge up to 60% annually. There's a number of lenders out there, the financed or cash monies and all that do these lines of credit that charge upwards of 60% a year. Those are the ones that should be addressed. People that have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, putting it down on their down payment as a down payment on their mortgage. The default rates on insured mortgages, which are less than 20%, are at 0.02%.
Yeah, there's been so many changes. They're talking about potentially implementing capital gains tax. We were talking about that recently, kind of ironically. They're proposing changes to homeowners potentially paying capital gains on their own primary home, which again we've discussed off air that we just don't foresee that ever happening. But as Greg alluded to, we didn't think HST would happen either. So we'll see what, or that might have been someone else. Either way, a lot of changes. Yeah. Greg, what have you seen this week? I know there was some rumors about some changes as well on the realtor side of things.
What have I seen? I had a crazy week. I mean, personally, lots of. I sold one yesterday, 102 over list, but only 2 offers on it.
Wow.
Got a pretty active rental going on. We had, I've got another one that had a big condition on it that might close today. And interestingly enough, I've been out looking at homes. I've seen tons of row homes, and the showings in the back end from what I see are less and less, and there's more coming out every day. So I don't know where exactly that's going or how quick that's going to plateau, but I'm seeing things kind of, again, I think I mentioned this last week and probably the week before. I think things are leveling out a bit. I've got an offer in on one today that I'm hoping we're going to get, but I listed one on Wednesday morning and we only have 2 showings. And a month ago, that thing would have been, we'd already have 15 to 20 showings booked. So for anybody watching, and if they're curious about what's going on, and this is in the row home realm, so this is like the 450 to 650 realm, I guess now. So if you're looking, I would say keep at it because things are changing.
Now, Greg, do you think though that the new stay-at-home order has a reflection on that showing number? Because there's a lot of people that now are kind of saying, well, I should be at home. I'm being told to stay at home. Or
it's possible. We talked about that, but at the same time, I was seeing the showings slow overall, even up to 2 weeks ago, like it was starting. So, it's a good point. Maybe all the calls I get, the messages I got, they're like, does this change anything? Does this change anything? And I'm like, absolutely not. They're like, great. So anybody who's shopping is shopping and they're going to keep going. In terms of new buyers, maybe if they're inclined to stay at home, you also got to remember, I think a lot of these buyers are not, if they're out, they're not high risk to begin with. But I don't know. We'll find out in the next month and a bit what happens. I was talking to somebody else. I got a couple of small business owners. There's like, yeah, this is going until the end of May, at least. They say the lockdown is not stopping, and they're debating on closing up shop because they can't handle it anymore. So if that continues, if we have a full lockdown for 60 days, I think that may affect stuff, but at the same time, the listings just keep coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I know we have our good friend, Kevin Morris, coming on shortly to go over the numbers, but I think, as Paul mentioned last week, Easter weekend kind of is a lot of times a launching point for new listings coming on the market and things like that. One kind of short little story before we bring Kevin on, but my sister out in Limoges is actually, she was listed her townhome. Easter Sunday, her husband's out playing with their daughter on the front lawn. 3 cars pulled up Easter Sunday morning, taking photos. One guy gets out, asks her what she listed at. She said, her husband said $399. He's like, all right, my budget's 140 over asking. It's like, I'm here for relocation for military. I got to go home by Thursday. Like, when are you listing? They're like, Thursday. Like, can I get in earlier? I'm good for 540.
Wow.
Sold.
Really?
on the lawn. Yeah. On the lawn. My brother-in-law just called me. He's like, what should I do? I'm like, you need to stop talking because you talk too much. You're too honest. I'm like, you're not a good negotiator. Just stop talking, pass it off. But
that's wild.
They They had him in the Wednesday. Wow. I don't know where it's transpired, but they had him in the Wednesday morning and just said, we're having the cleaners come by. It was pretty clean and staged and whatnot, but yeah, it was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty comical. Out in Limoges too. I said to him, you're not in a high traffic area.
Yeah, they really want that house.
Yeah.
I got a quick side note just because you said the word negotiation, because this happened to me this week. Now, I'm a pretty good negotiator, but I've been out of practice because there's been no negotiation in real estate in the last year and a half. There's been no serious reason to negotiate. You do that, you have a conversation with the agent, you figure a few things out, but there's no like aggressive negotiation. And I had to negotiate yesterday. And after I got off the call, I was like, I could have handled that way better, and it really surprised me because, it was okay overall, but there was a couple elements. I'm like, I'm like, I didn't fuck that up, but I could have done that better. So I'm bringing this up because for all the new agents in the business in the last year and a half that have never had to negotiate in a business that is traditionally based on negotiation, I think there's going to be a lot of people having a very hard time and getting lost in the negotiation and getting very emotional about it. So I've never been big on role playing in real estate. But I think if there's a time to start doing it in terms of new agents and training, I think role playing should be at an all-time high right now to get prepared for what's coming so that you know how to deal with every single situation.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of agents that aren't even going to know how to put conditions on their purchase agreements,
or what conditions.
Well, and they're not going to know, and they're going to be
options.
calling. Yeah, and they're going to be calling for advice, which is fine because that's what someone like me is here for. But I mean, you're going to have to. I think the role playing thing is, I think as a brokerage, we do a bit of it, but I think we're going to have to kick that into high gear because that time's coming.
When the negotiations happen, what's kind of the average amount of times you're going back and forth? Like I know you hear realtors like, oh, I spent 8 hours on negotiations. Like what in that time frame is consuming the most amount of your time?
It depends because, right now, I had an inspection on a house and, there's a lot of little items to do. So you're just trying to, figure out what's what. And, the buyer wants something and the seller wants something, right? And then you get to the last minute and it becomes aggressive and it all comes down to price. But on this particular case, it's work to be done. Who's paying for it? Who's paying for the work? So, I mean, in terms of 8 hours of negotiations, I think that's insane. You can usually get it all done within a 30-minute phone call. If you're doing it right, maybe a little bit of back and forth, but yeah.
So we have Mr. Morris here with us today. I think we bring him in. We just got a question from one of our viewers as well. And I feel like it's a perfect segue to bring in Return of the Mac, Kevin Morris. Kevin Morris is with us.
Hello. Thanks for having
Kevin
me back.
Morrison. Hey, yeah. Welcome. The new hot mic too. It's fire.
Yes.
So Alex says, do you feel like the Ottawa real estate craziness is a bit exaggerated by the media? A lot of townhomes with condo fees in my area, Gloucester, are staying on market for over 2 to 3 weeks. Feels like everyone wants that nice detached home in the suburb, but it's not crazy in all sectors, in my opinion. Thoughts?
I think in every facet of life, the media looks for, I think we talked about clickbait and headlines and exaggeration in some aspects. In other aspects, it's not. In the housing market for the last year has been utterly insane, and if you've listened week to week of our conversations, the amounts that people are going over asking, or kind of the price points of what some places are going for, that's not an exaggeration. So there's some aspects of those news articles that aren't full of nonsense, but by and large, and Kevin will probably attest to this from the numbers from this year over last year, what places are going for. But Greg, I think you're probably in the same boat. Like, I think it's a lot of exaggeration, but also at the same time, a lot of truth.
There's a ton of exaggeration, and again, we have the comment of like, people thinking it's so easy right now for us doing our job. And it's like, it's more stressful than ever because we're having these situations where, like he's saying, he's seeing the condo row home sit for weeks. Like, I just listed a row that, maybe 2 weeks ago would have had 20 showings. Now it's got 1. Now it's got 2. So, they take, I feel like they put it, I feel like they're behind everything. Like all the publicity that they're pushing is behind where it actually is, because it changes so quickly and they can't keep up. And at the same time, I don't think that they're speaking with all of the right people, and they're basing it on half truths and numbers that just don't make sense. Like, and it's overall, it's broad, it's Canada. Like, they'll talk about Toronto, Ottawa a bit, but it's not. I don't know. I think the focus is all wrong. It needs to be more detailed, and that's why. We've always said it before. When you read that stuff, you got to really make sure that the people contact somebody and talk to their local expert, because nobody knows better. And when you see all this hype, it's just madness. No one knows, but it happened to me. I met a buyer the other day. She called me 2 months ago. She read a Google review. She's like, I want to work with you. Great. Let's meet. Saw the news. She's like, I've been seeing the news. I've been talking to my parents. I can't do it right now. And I'm like, listen, the news and your parents are not the experts in the business. I go, but I understand. I go, whenever you're ready, just contact me and we'll sit down. And anyway, so a few weeks later, which was this week, she called me, we sat down, and I totally, I put it all into perspective for her, introduced her to Paul, and then here we go. She's ready to go. So she did it the right way. She took a pause, and then she kind of said, you know what, maybe I should just talk to a professional and figure it out. And then I totally put her at ease. So
I agree with you, Greg. I think all things are like, everything is it's all exaggerated for that clickbaitiness. But also it's usually delayed at least by a day or 2. Like even the stuff that comes out about stress tests, they're doing it because they want, like, people read the headlines like, oh, stress test, it's going to completely change the market. It's like, well, it's not. It's actually not going to change the market that much again, this is our opinion. But the headlines make it seem like this is going to be like a massive, full 180. We're increasing the stress test. So full 180.
Again, these changes were made in 2018, implementing a stress test, and the stress test back then was 514, I believe it was what it was. And that didn't slow down the market. It's at the end of the day, it just means a third cosigner is, a second cosigner is going to be on that mortgage.
And how many people have 20% down? Right? It does nothing. And that's the thing that, again, it's like, oh my God, how can I'm never going to qualify at 5.25. It's like, dude, do you even have 20% down? No. But then they think about it. And then some people will literally just stop.
Yeah.
They won't look for any information. They'll be like, I saw this on CTV News. Must be true. I'm screwed. It's like, come on, man.
And really it boils down to, they're already qualifying at 479 prior to this. And right now it hasn't been implemented yet. It's likely to be implemented shortly. But
July,
already qualifying at 479. It is a 46 basis point increase, which equates to a 4% decrease in what you could afford. It's not massive. Yes, it adds up, but it's not absolutely astronomical. And it is a number that, at least within Ottawa, for the most part, people aren't actually buying at the max that they can afford in a lot of cases. So I don't see, at least in our market, that it's going to make any difference, but we'll see. But maybe as we talk about numbers, maybe Kevin, we have you here sitting silently. So maybe you can
welcome Kevin
some of the numbers since the last time we had you.
Oh, and just to jump in before Kevin starts, Kevin's got a good listing coming up soon.
Yeah, potentially. I'm hoping to get that one in the bag.
It's happening. All right.
What do you got for us, Kev? What's the latest?
Ooh, so I made this new chart, this new map of Ottawa, and this one's looking at the cumulative days on market.
So let's just keep in mind, some people may only be listening, so we'll try to describe the video, like the images, as best we can. But go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
So we have a map of Ottawa, and it's split into different regions, just different neighborhoods. And essentially, I took all the data across Matrix, the back end of the Realtor.ca for Ottawa, over the past 30 days. And I mapped all the neighborhoods, and I took the cumulative days on market. So a lot of homes, they're just on the market for maybe a week and a half. But then some homes, they'll be on the market for like a week, and then they'll go off the market and then come back on. And then all the days that it's been on market, that's the cumulative days. And essentially what we're seeing on this map is that a lot of these suburbs that we have, like you're looking at Orleans, Barrhaven, Canada, Stittsville, and even sort of like some regions like on the inside of the Greenbelt, a lot of those cumulative days on market is under 7. So homes are selling in a week, the majority of homes. And then it's sort of hard to tell because you can't zoom in like I can, but there's regions like Greeley and out sort of like Rockcliffe Park, Cumberland area, where we're seeing, larger numbers, but a lot of those homes are sort of at the top end of the spectrum for price. And so it's sort of, we understand why. Yeah, we understand why they're.
But even for those high-end homes, or those in Greeley, Manotick, Rockcliffe, things like that, what are you seeing, kind of just at a quick glance of cumulative? Like, are we talking months, or are we talking a couple weeks?
So what I'm actually seeing is that it's probably like 1 or 2 homes that are actually they're sort of bringing the average up more than the others. So they're really weighed pretty heavily in this average. And we
got to do the old take the top and the bottom off and average the rest.
Exactly. And then
grade 3 math.
Right downtown as well, we're still seeing condos and other types of homes in that region around 30 days, just over 30 days. So things I think they've been going down a little, but it's still up there, especially when homes in the suburbs are selling in under a week.
Let's, I know you had some other charts with it's kind of like comparatively like we had last time. Yeah, this is perfect. So this is Barrhaven prices by style and bedrooms. So it shows the style of the unit, again, for people listening, style of the unit, the total bedrooms, the average list price, average sold price, average over or under. I'm assuming that's over or under the list price, average days. Average percentage over list price, average conditional days on market, and then the district. I guess that's the district days on market.
So that's distinct count. So that's how many homes are in that average. And so what we're seeing here is there has been a lot of sold homes in Barrhaven specifically. And some that I'm looking at right now in the detached homes, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, like over 30, and there's over 50 detached homes with 4 bedrooms.
That's pretty crazy.
Are sold. And so that really gives us a good average to work with. And even in the row homes in Barrhaven, 3 bedrooms are on average selling for around 600, and that's everything. So homes that are 30 years old, built in the 90s, all the way up to homes, built in the last 10, 20 years. But on average,
the thing that stands out there to me is the average over under of sale price is almost uniform across the board. Like it ranges from 111 to 121, right? Like they're all kind of in that same threshold of over asking price. So would it be safe to assume that if those list prices went up, say 10%, that those numbers would balance out? Or is that, would we get stuck in a market again, like we said before, Greg, where if you do price it properly, you get much less interest?
Well, I think that's what's starting to happen, unless it's a spectacular property. And I do, and back to what I was saying earlier, I think that partially has somewhat to do with the with showing slowing down, because I think that buyers are confused, and if they see something now at $599, they think like, oh, they must want $700 for it now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a month, like 6 weeks ago, it would have been listed at $499 and would have sold at $6, but now they're listing at $599. So I think there's some buyers, and maybe there's a little bit of a lack of education there, where they're thinking like, well, it's going to go for $700, or it's like, forget it. It's too beautiful. I don't want to compete.
Yeah, they're almost adding 100,000 in their head before they.
I don't want to get involved.
The psychological side has really gotten a hold of them. Big time.
Like the one that I sold on Moselle the other day, we got 2 offers and we still did very well. But I had calls from agents half an hour in. I don't mess around when it comes to multiple offers. I'm like, revisions, we'll wait to submit. I kind of say, we're going to give you 15 minutes for your revision and wait just in case there's anyone else who wants to come in. Then we're looking at offers. So we're sitting there signing it. And as we're signing, I get calls from agents. They're like, how many offers did you get? I'm like, well, you saw the notification. I have 2. They're like, you only got 2 offers. And they're like, my clients didn't submit because we thought that you'd get so many offers and then it was going to go so high. And I'm like, well, snooze, you lose. Yeah.
The old adage, snooze, you lose.
Snooze, you lose. So we got it done. But I think there's more of that. There's my neighbor's house. Beautiful, beautiful home. And they got, I showed it. And my guys are like, there's no way this is going to sell for 7. They got 1 offer. They still did well on the 1 offer, but they only got the 1. And it was a spectacular home listed at 600. So if I'm seeing this myself, this has to be happening everywhere. So I think
I guess my next question would be then, like, let's just say for your neighbors, right? If you list it, let's just say 599 and someone comes in and they're like, oh, well, the listing at 599, but we should probably go in at 640. So now the buyers, let's say there's only 1 offer and they're going in 40,000 over asking. If they actually went in at asking, do you think the sellers would then be like, well, we're going to wait and put it back on the market? Like, are people actually happy getting what they're listed at, or are they expecting to be getting that much over asking now? So
that's happening a lot as well. We're seeing people come in and submit on offer day, or they'll submit a preemptive and then they'll counter back 50,000 over that. And then the buyer might just say, well, forget it. You know what I mean? You were listed at that. And that becomes troublesome because that is, in my respect, you're not communicating properly with your seller at that point. If, because that means that you're having a conversation at where you're listing, that they're expecting automatically to get that much money over asking. Whereas when I list a house, I say, look, this is what's happening right now. I go, historically, if we look at the numbers, if we listed this price now, we should get this, but you have to consider that if we get this, that might be all you get. If you wanted to counter, you could counter, a little bit higher and see where we go. But I think we're having a communication breakdown with some agents and sellers now where, there's one the other day in Orleans. It was listed at $499. 6 hours before offers, they increased the price 50,000.
That's crazy.
Come on, man. I haven't even looked to see if it's sold yet, but I was like, that's, they were probably nervous. They had no offers. And they're like, we're going to increase it to 550 because that's what we want.
Right.
So
that's setting poor expectations and poor communication with those clients. If the news has gotten in their head about what to expect from, I'm going to get 100,000 over asking or this or that, kind of having that discussion of, well, these are sometimes artificially priced lower than they should be, in order to drive that traffic, of kind of just opening those lines of communication with those clients that people, I think, just aren't having, or those inexperienced agents aren't having.
Exactly. And the conversation that I'm having now, again, I went through this before in the business. I'm having it again now with every single buyer I'm working with. I say, listen, I go, no matter what happens with us right now, whatever you buy, whatever you pay for it, if you want to sell it in 2 years, be prepared that you might be selling it at the same price that you're buying it for right now. I say it might not happen. I say, but be ready for that, because it's very possible. And historically it happens. And then they're like, wow, really? And I'm like, look, I go, you're getting the house that you want. You're going to be living there. You're going to build your equity. It'll come up again. I go, but just don't be buying a house to expect that you're going to make $100,000 in 2 years.
You don't buy it as a stock, right?
Yeah. I'm like, that ship is sailed. It's almost over. So that's what I'm talking. Go.
No, I was just going to say, I know there's 2 more communities that he had. I know you had Barhaven and I think Canada and Orleans. Yeah. But just for the sake of time as well, I just want to make sure we at least glance. I'm assuming the numbers are going to be very similar across the board for the different areas.
Yeah, definitely very similar.
Didn't realize there's so many 6-bedroom homes in Ottawa.
Once you start getting up there for the $1 million homes, like there aren't that many that are selling. I mean, they still are, but especially once you narrow it down to Canada, there aren't that many.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many and I know you don't have these right now, but would you say the homes that are selling for $1 million and up are mostly like Centertown, Manotick, Greeley, Rothwell, Rockcliffe, rather? Would those be kind of the main areas that are selling predominantly over $1 million?
I mean, we're seeing some in Canada. Like even if you look at like detached homes in Canada, on average, like some of the 4-bedroom ones, they're selling close. Like, you know, if the $1 million is your benchmark, then like, I think Canada, we're going to start seeing a lot more if things continue on this way. Like we have 48 homes that sold, 48 detached homes with 4 bedrooms, and the average sold price is just under $1 million. So like 50,000 less than $1 million. So it's up there, and you got a lot of money in Canada. I think like a lot of the high tech sectors there, and people want to live in Canada.
Canada and Orleans, those are the two poppin' neighborhoods. Steve White posted one of our viewers here just said, bought a home with my brother and his wife in order to afford the crazy house prices. I'm afraid what the rumors are saying of a spike in interest rates because we have a huge deficit. I'm assuming it means federally, and it will be homeowners paying down the deficit. Yes, I would say, you know, interest rates, which we can touch on quickly, but interest rates obviously are specific to the bank, and those interest rates going up will definitely help shareholders of the banks. But as far as the deficit, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, I don't want to talk on, I'm no expert. This is completely my personal opinion. But I would see that probably in the form of an increased HST or some sort of tax like that to everyone, as opposed to just homeowners. But who knows? Like that capital gains tax is a perfect example of how, you know, they might ding homeowners for choices made by others. But as far as rates go, and I was kind of saying this earlier, I wanted to just kind of explain to people how rates work and you know, how we get to choose a rate, because, you know, we as brokers, we work with over 30 different lenders, right? And each one of those lenders, believe it or not, has a literal matrix of rates that they send to us. So for example, if, you know, TD, Scotiabank, 28 other banks, they all send us rates, right? And that rate matrix is a breakdown of, you know, what type of property is this? Is this a owner-occupied property? Is it a rental? Are you putting 20% down? Are you putting 5%? What's the location of the property? Like there's all of these different factors that go into that. So if you picture, let's just say there's 30 rates from each lender that we receive, and there's 30 different lenders. You know, if someone says, what's the best rate you can have, or where are rates at right now? Well, we have 900 rate options, you know, based on 30 lenders times 30 rates. That's 900 rate options. And then every one of those questions, like, okay, are you buying? Yes. Okay. Well, that narrows the scope from 900 maybe to 300. And then, okay, well, what's your down payment? You're putting 20%. Okay. Well, now from 300, we may have, you know, 100 rates available. And then, you know,
25 versus 30 year, variable versus
all these things, right? And then the number of available rates becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, which is why when people say like, well, what's the best rate you can give me for this purchase? I don't have enough information to answer that. And it's not like I'm trying to dodge the question, but anyone that can quote a rate with just you saying I'm buying a house is disingenuous and is not giving you an accurate answer, you know? So all these people, you know, I often get people being like, oh, well, I saw this online, or, you know, I did some research and I saw that I can get this rate. Well, that's excellent, but I can guarantee you that whoever's quoting you that rate doesn't know all of these small nuances, as I said, that narrows that scope from 900 to 1, you know? And it is a really important aspect to know, because we, you know, rates change every day. You know, a lender could just say our investors want a bit more security, we're raising our rates by 20 points. And they might be the only lender that does that. Every other lender might stay the same. And then the next day, another lender might change. So, I mean, we have 30 different lenders that are all changing their rates on a regular basis. And each one of those lenders has 30 different rates. So again, it's like, you know, we're starting with 900 different rate options at all times. And we have to, you know, ask the right questions to narrow that scope and make sure we're getting people the right product, right? The right rate. So a little rant about rates, just so that people understand what, when it's not, you know, when you ask the question, what's the best rate I can get? It's not an easy question. Like there is a lot of kind of small things that affect that. So, yeah. There you go.
That was good.
So what do you think? Should we pop on to the mood boost?
Let's pop on.
Or do you want to keep going? I feel like we've been ranting for 40 minutes.
What? So. I love this episode.
It's good. A lot of good talk.
I think this was like hyper informative episode. Yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
I think so too. I love being here and I learn a lot, and Fridays, that's the education day for me. This half hour to an hour type of thing is
love it.
Very good for new agents, especially myself.
Cool.
Steven's just our producer's just adjusting. Dave did have an appointment that he had to go to, so he has his exit stage left. So we're just readjusting the images here. But yeah, no, it was a great episode, and I really think I kind of like when we bounce around topic to topic, because you just never know when people are tuning in to listen. You never know where they're at, or where they're at in the process, or what information they're looking to learn. So they it's nice to kind of have a bunch of different topics, and then people can kind of take away what's valuable to them, So Kevin, we're going to need you to rate these now today with Greg, because Dave isn't with us. So let's hop into the mood boost. I got 3 today. I'm feeling pretty good about all of them. Number 1, how did the dentist become a brain surgeon? The drill slipped.
Wow.
Oof.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Number 2. What did the surfer think of the wave in front of him? He thought it was swell.
Oh.
And last but not least, this is a good one. I've had a neck brace fitted years ago, and I've never looked back since. I like that one.
One out of 3.
Juan. Siempre.
Yeah.
Juan.
Yeah, I'd give 1 out of 3 as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. So for everyone tuning in, just a reminder that we do record live here every Friday, the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, Friday morning, typically 10 a.m. And then we release the new episodes on Tuesday. So this episode will be available on any podcast platform and on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. So if you go to YouTube and you subscribe to the channel there, you'll be notified every time we post the new videos. And obviously, if you have any questions, or if anyone wants us to talk about anything specifically, just feel free to reach out, send us a message either on Facebook or make a comment on the video on YouTube, and we'll be sure to slide that in the mix. Any closing comments, gentlemen?
No, just keep your heads together, people. Talk to the experts. Know what is real and know what is fake. And buy a home with a professional.
Siempre.
Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to thank you guys once again for letting me on. It's been a pleasure.
I wish I could play.
You on. We're having you on, Kevin. Having you on all the time.
Open door. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Deuces.
Later.
Bye.
The Ottawa Real Estate Podcast is brought to you by Referral Mortgages, Blue Panda Realty, and Stephen Hopkins Video. Thanks for tuning in, and please remember to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you.